People who grew up in the 1990s may feel nostalgic about Surge, Shark Bites, and other discontinued foods from the era. And of course, those of a certain age will remember Zima, the clear malt beverage that was a huge hit when it debuted in 1993. But it wasn't long before Zima became a pop culture punchline.
You should go back to your strip malls and drink your Zimas and Smirnoff Ice. Yeah.
Today, we're opening up the history of Zima's epic rise and swift tumble into hazy, nostalgic memories. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave us a comment and let us know what other food or beverage-related topics you would like to hear about. Now, let's plunge into the cooler for a clearer look at Zima. Natural health trends of the 1980s led companies in the early 90s to begin producing clear products and marketing them as pure and more natural than, say, juice or artificially colored beverages. Crystal Pepsi was one of the first clear products, debuting in 1992 with a commercial featuring Van Halen, or Van Hagar if we're being honest about it. At least it wasn't Van Sharon. Although it graced the shelves for only about a year, it inspired dozens of other companies to jump on the clear trend, leading to colorless versions of everything from ivory dishwashing liquid to men deodorant. Before the eventual decline of clear products, Coors took a swing at the fad with the creation of Zima in 1994. The company bottled its products in clear glass bottles, with fancy ribbed sides, to market the drink as beer's classier cousin. Miller Brewing Company, then a rival of Coors, tried to compete by launching clear beer, but the venture flopped. Coors believed Miller's failure was a result of having beer in the name of its product, and tried to sell Zima as a beer alternative instead. Though it visibly resembles both, Zima was neither grain alcohol nor water, but a carbonated clear malt beverage. So one might ask, how was Zima made? Instead of rebranding or reformulating an old product with a new flavor, Coors created Zima through a method of its own invention. Using low-grade lager as a base and filtering it through charcoal, the process removed the beer's amber color, but it also stripped away the taste. Coors tried to get around this by pepping it up with citrus flavorings, ultimately creating a beverage with a 4.7% alcohol content. The flavor, however, turned out to be a problem for consumers.
It's terrible! Nobody drink the beer! The beer has gone bad!
The responses of several Reddit users when asked about the Zima experience suggested why the product didn't last very long. They compared the taste of Zima to lemonade filtered through aluminum foil, citrus-flavored horse piss, and a mixture of Sprite, grain alcohol, and balls. Citrus-flavored horse piss. Just like Mom used to make. During the 1980s, somewhat health-conscious consumers preferred wine coolers over drinks with heavier alcohol content. And by the early grungy 90s, rapidly declining beer sales forced producers to add some fizz to their marketing. Coors' new, clear, citrus-flavored carbonated malt beverage seemed primed to take advantage of the increasing popularity of wine coolers. So the company turned to lexicon branding to name its creation. The firm came up with the Zima, which means winter in Russian. Russian winters. Yeah, cool. Now that it had a unique communist name, Coors aimed to market its product to men who wanted something other than beer but more masculine than a wine cooler. Coors gave specific instructions to liquor stores to make Zima stand out and went out of its way to avoid any association with those vile wine coolers. Coors even went so far as to ask stores to keep Zima displays away from the wine coolers. Male drinkers, the line of thinking was, considered wine coolers a female-oriented beverage and would shun Zima if they thought it was just another frou-frou drink. Television commercials depicted men enjoying Zima in bars, while relishing the experience as something different. Oh, that's clever. Coors spent millions on advertising in its bid to attract young men to the product. Unfortunately, men also decided to drink something different after tasting Zima. Aside from its taste, apparently men didn't consider it manly enough. So guys were not keen on Zima, but you know who were? Women. Despite the manly marketing barrage, lots of young women developed a taste for the drink and became Zima's biggest market. Much of the attraction was that the drink contained a reasonable amount of alcohol, but wasn't as heavy as beer. Once women became Zima's primary demographic, it wasn't only the taste that drove men to consume other alcoholic beverages. They saw Zima as a drink designed for women, exactly the opposite of what Coors was trying to accomplish. Coors spent $38 million to promote Zima during its debut in 1994. In addition to a video series and video game, Coors launched one of the first websites to advertise a food product and create a community around it. Cheers to you, Tribe Z. The company also made a series of memorable television commercials that featured uniquely stylish personalities, instead of the mainstream attractive people commonly used in booze advertising at the time. These efforts paid off, and Zima became an instant success. According to Coors, about 70% of legal-aged drinkers tried Zima in 1994. The company sold 1.3 million barrels that year alone. But despite the massive marketing effort behind it, Zima obviously wasn't as tasty as its advertising led many drinkers to believe, and consumers turned elsewhere. While Coors initially believed that its clarity would make Zima trendy, the lack of color also appealed to some unintended fans, underage drinkers. Zima quickly attracted the attention of teens since it resembled water and could be easily hidden. And of course, teens will drink anything they can get their hands on. Teens also liked that the drink didn't smell like alcohol, because teens don't know what taste is. Many drinkers enhanced the taste of the product by adding flavored schnapps or Jolly Ranchers, further enticing underage palates. Rumors circulated that Zima would not register on a breathalyzer, alarming parents and the brand's parent company. Officials in 10 states sent a letter to Coors accusing it of purposely marketing Zima to young people. In response, the company created a video showing a police officer consuming several bottles of Zima before taking a breathalyzer, proving the alcohol would indeed register, because Zima contained alcohol, not magic. Coors also sent letters to school superintendents and police chiefs in which they claimed, Zima, like any alcohol beverage, contains ethanol, the ingredient that registers in any breathalyzer test. Zima is still detectable despite its clear profile. Coors struggled to help Zima stay afloat for several years after its initial release in 1994. New television commercials were created featuring Zima drinkers engaging in manly activities like football. But the product's enduring reputation prevented it from gaining popularity. That Zima became a recurring punchline for David Letterman certainly didn't help. In 1995, Coors went for the Hail Mary and changed its formula, introducing Zima Gold. It had a higher alcohol content and a caramel urine coloring, and tasted more like a mixture of Coke and bourbon. But drinkers did not go for it, and it was pulled from shelves only 3 months later due to a lack of sales. Even so, Coors refused to completely give up on Zima. After the failure of Zima Gold, the company tried marketing the product as an ideal way to quench thirst on hot days, and reformulated it to taste like Sprite. By 2004, competition from the always pleasant Smirnoff Ice led Coors to create a more intense product called Zima XXX, which came in a variety of extreme flavors and had a higher alcohol content. Ultimately, Zima was unable to duplicate its early brief success. Sales continued to dwindle for the next 2 years. Although Zima may have enjoyed a long and prosperous life with a niche following, laws in 2 states ended up dooming the drink. In 2008, Utah passed a law requiring all malternative drinks to use all caps and bold font to label their alcohol content on packaging. Coors, now merged with Miller as Miller Coors, hesitated, as printing labels to be used on products sold only in one state would be expensive and time-consuming. The end result was Zima being pulled from shelves in Utah altogether. That same year, California raised the tax rate that the company would be required to pay for Zima by treating it as a distilled spirit, not a beer. The state believed doing so would discourage underage drinking, as minors may not have the cash to afford the price hike. With new problems introduced by the California law in mind, the company decided that Zima was more trouble than it was worth, and discontinued the product. While consumers can no longer find Zima on American shelves, the product never left stores in Japan. In fact, outside of special limited releases, Japan is now the only place in the world where Zima is sold in stores, bars, and nightclubs. The product has been embraced not just by Japanese drinkers, but by the company's original intended market, men. Finally, we're selling booze to men. Hallelujah. As of 2014, men in their 20s reportedly consumed Zima each month at more than twice the rate of women. Since the product never left Japanese shelves, nostalgia isn't responsible for its success. According to Molson Coors Japan brand manager Kyoko Okochi, the popularity of Zima in Japan is instead due to a different marketing approach. While American drinkers were tempted with ads featuring young men who wanted to be different, Japanese consumers were shown commercials featuring scantily clad women and a famous actor urging them to be cool and popular. Japanese Zima also benefited from local flavors. In addition to the original product, drinkers in Japan can try a pink cherry blossom flavored Zima. After years of trying and failing to get men to drink Zima, Coors swallowed its pride and accepted women drinkers as Zima's primary audience. In 2007, the company reformulated Zima once again, introducing a variety of fruity flavors. In order to better attract young women, the company lowered the alcohol content and advertised the new Zima's low-calorie count. At this point, Coors realized Zima would never match its initial success. So it tried to bill the beverage as a niche product. Though this strategy worked for a while, Coors discontinued Zima in America only a year later. Nostalgia kept Zima in many consumers' minds, however, and re-releases proved people would buy it, even if they joked about drinking it. So, why do people still remember Zima? Nostalgia can be powerful, so it's probably no surprise that Zima was brought back for a limited release in the summer of 2017. It was such a hit, in fact, that Miller Coors decided to do the same thing the following year. Speaking about the 2018 re-release, senior marketing manager Delaney Fernando said, "Everyone needs to try Zima once. It's a novelty. And for most people, apparently, once is enough." While Zima may no longer be around in the US, it is a precursor of many of the beer alternatives available today. Coors may not have attracted the market it wanted, but it did prove consumers had an interest in non-beer malt beverages. Other brewers noticed this open market and began creating their own alternatives, including Bacardi Silver, Mike's Hard Lemonade, Smirnoff Ice, and White Claw. Malternatives have been largely marketed towards young, trendy people and have gained popularity at clubs and parties, and of course, among pranksters. Pizza, pizza, pizza. No, that's not a misquote of our favorite mid-90s pizza mascot, Little Caesar. It's our way of remembering that period of time when more meant more in the pizza industry. More slices, more toppings, and more cheese. More! Never was that more apparent than in the early 90s, when America's three biggest pizza chains launched outsized campaigns for their mega-sized pies. Today on Weird History Food, we're talking about the giant pizza war of the 1990s. Okay, grab a napkin and a plate and put down that fork. Come on, who eats a pizza with a fork? The year was 1993. Bill Clinton was playing saxophone in the White House. Jurassic Park was tearing up the box office. And in pizza kitchens across the country, a piping hot or your money back war was being waged. In the early 1990s, the combined might of Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Little Caesars accounted for a whopping 48% of the pie of America's pizza industry. Each chain had sliced out its own slice of notoriety, and the reigning champion was the oh-so-deliciously buttery Pizza Hut. With its signature red booths, arcade games, and pleasant dining experience, Pizza Hut offered a family-friendly alternative to the pickup counter. Meanwhile, Domino's had sliced itself as the best delivery option, with its mad dash of drivers running red lights to get you your za in 30 minutes or less. Or it was free.
Wise man say, forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Perhaps not coincidentally, this was the same year the Domino's guarantee went bye-bye, after the company was forced to pay a St. Louis woman $78 million in damages. It turns out that forcing teenagers to race at breakneck speeds or risk losing their wages wasn't the smartest idea, as the woman suffered injuries when the teen delivery driver ran a red light and struck her car. Ouch. Then there was Little Caesars. Little Caesars didn't have dine-in locations or a delivery fleet. If you wanted Little Caesars, you'd have to use your cordless telephone. Call them, and then drive your own vehicle to the store and pick up your own order. How barbaric. Life was tremendously difficult before DoorDash. You had to get your own takeout, just like the pioneers. So how did Little Caesars set itself apart from its rivals? By offering more, of course. Starting in 1974, Little Caesars sold their pizzas in pairs, which is where that catchy "Pizza Pizza" slogan comes from.
Pizza, pizza.
While most of the time Little Caesars couldn't offer you the dine-in experience of a Pizza Hut, or daredevil drivers willing to risk life and limb so you could spill piping hot sauce down your new work shirt while watching Roseanne, they could offer you a good pizza value. To this day, Little Caesars remains the cheapest pizza franchise in town, with a large pepperoni costing only $6 in 2022. It's hard to pass up that bargain every day. For decades, a kind of pizza détente had existed between the big three, with each company ruling over its zesty fiefdom in relative peace and harmony. But then, Little Caesars made its move, marking a turning point when the mutually respective coexistence of the three pizza chains gave way to open hostilities. All it took was Little Caesars taking the next logical step in its value offensive, and it all started with a simple question. What if, instead of just offering two normal-sized pizzas, they could offer you two humongous pizzas? Double the cheese, double the pepperoni, double the depth, double the chance of a massive heart attack. Yes, 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 and yes. Probably earned it, but don't call that a Chicago-style pizza. Little Caesars Big Cheese, emphasis on the exclamation marks, was the Detroit-style pizza, a less bready counterpart to the Chicago-style deep dish pie. The Big Cheese was a resounding success, and Little Caesars' sales soared by 54%, as America gobbled them up like Americans eating anything ever. Non-pizza items also benefited from a nice little bump from the Big Cheese. 1993 was the year that Little Caesars introduced the world to the spaghetti bucket, which was exactly how it sounds and tastes. After years of ranking third in the pizza triumvirate, Little Caesars' Big Cheese gimmick looked like it might finally put them ahead of Domino's. But the Big Cheese, which, not to split hairs, was a pepperoni pizza, was about to face some stiff competition for its greasy crown. Pizza Hut could see this Little Caesar gaining ground in its rear view. The number one pizza restaurant had a choice: either ignore the underdog or copy it pretty much exactly. The Hut chose to et tu brute Little Caesars, and America was introduced to the Bigfoot Pizza, a massive 12 by 24 inch, 21 slice rectangle for only $11. Yes, it was 1 foot wide and 2 feet long. By the way, the same genius marketing team went on to come up with the idea for stuffed crust several years later. No one really remembers how the Bigfoot tasted, but anyone who survived the Great Pizza Wars remembers how aggressively Pizza Hut advertised it, spending millions on television, newspaper, magazine, and billboard ads featuring a smiling, cryptic mascot in a green tank top. Only Crystal Pepsi could compete with the sheer amount of media saturation.
Hello, Pizza Hut delivery. Yes, we've got Crystal Pepsi. Yes, we do.
No, we don't have Crystal Pepsi. This is Domino's.
Incidentally, both Pepsi and Pizza Hut were owned by the same parent company. Giant multinational corporations. And if the brand's first ever national product campaign wasn't enough, Pizza Hut got really adventurous and leased a $4 million blimp to fly over cities with a cartoon Bigfoot and Pizza Hut's logo. But Pizza Hut was trying to fly too close to the sun, because on July 4th, 1993, the Bigfoot pizza blimp crashed into the roof of an apartment building on the west side of Manhattan, injuring 2 crew members. Honestly, it might have been the most important 4th of July celebration in the nation's history. The chain's vice president said at the time that while the situation was unfortunate, it did succeed in heightening brand awareness. Might want to keep that thought to yourself, bud.
I don't believe you just said that.
For Pizza Hut, there was no such thing as bad press, only big and Bigfootier press. So the Bigfoot marketing juggernaut slothed along. TV ads parodying Bigfoot sightings ran on every channel, one of which featured a pre-Sixth Sense Haley Joel Osment. The new ads for the Bigfoot took direct aim at the competition, causing Little Caesars to come up with her own TV spot, in which a monster truck with the brand's logo runs over a much smaller monster truck, while 2 old ladies look on. The ad claimed the Big Cheese to be larger than Pizza Hut's offering. We're no big city pizza lawyers here at Weird History Food, but that claim was mostly false. The Bigfoot was objectively larger, although Big Cheese had more slices, and more importantly, it was also heavier. The Big Cheese tipped the scales at 4 pounds after they piled on all that pepperoni and cheese. That looks so good. Despite Little Caesars' best efforts and Pizza Hut's blimp fiasco, the Bigfoot was a huge success. Company sales skyrocketed to $5.7 billion across 9,800 locations in 1993. Possibly because customers were scared that if they didn't pay tribute, the giant pizza monster blimp might come for them too. You never want to be the last to a pizza war, and you certainly don't want to be the least equipped either. Unfortunately, the Dominator was both. Domino's debuted its Giga Pizza only a few weeks after the Bigfoot arrived to challenge the Big Cheese. There was a lot riding on its success since Domino's was the only one of the big three pizza families whose earnings had been down for the last several years. In a mad dash to bake the competition, Domino's pizza scientists defied the laws of nature and created a monster known as the Dominator, the hands-down winner in the dough measuring contest. It was the largest and, thanks to its shape, the girthiest pizza on the market. And who doesn't want a girthy slice of pizza? But there was a fatal flaw in its design that caused the Dominator to end the pizza wars with a deafening faceplant. In the mad dash to respond to Pizza Hut and Little Caesars, no one had stopped to ask whether there was a reason that the competition had gone with a rectangular deep dish rather than a dino-sized discus. Until the first Dominator was sent on delivery, where it was discovered the Dominator was too wide to fit into the driver's car. Having never factored in sizing, Domino's quickly realized it could only offer its gargantuan pizza pie via carryout, as they made pizza larger than their delivery driver's doors. The Domino's really fell, as their trademark speedy delivery couldn't be applied to their new signature product. Pizza Hut had overwhelmed Domino's with its multi-million-dollar ad campaign weeks before launch. Now Domino's delivered its own death blow to the Dominator, as customers used to having their pizza delivered were forced to get in their car to pick it up themselves. And a Domino's pizza you have to pick up yourself was basically worthless. And since Domino's delivery drivers were piloting the same size vehicles as everyone else on the road, customers who ordered a Dominator for takeout quickly found that the behemoth wouldn't fit into their cars either. Maybe if they tied it to the luggage rack or had a big enough trunk. But who wants trunk pizza? Well, any kind of pizza is actually pretty good. It only took a few years for the giant pizza fad to fade. All three behemoths, the Big Cheese, the Bigfoot, and the Dominator, are now long gone. Mere footnotes in the history of American fast food. And in the dust following the giant pizza wars, Little Caesars nearly collapsed. From 1998 to 2001, hundreds of Little Caesars locations closed. It got so bad that Little Caesars stopped reporting store counts from 1999 to 2005. In recent years, Little Caesars has been able to claw its way back to bronze in the national pizza list. But compared to its former rivals, it has less than half of the gross sales as the #1 contender. Pizza Hut, the once gold standard of greasy pizza delight, has fallen to second place after cycling out the Bigfoot in favor of bigger, bolder menu items. It took some trial and error, but eventually a woman named Patty Scheibmeyer from Pizza Hut's product development focus group was struck by divine inspiration. What if they put cheese inside the crust? It was just crazy enough to work. The stuffed crust pizza is still on Pizza Hut's menu today, one of the only pizza innovations to endure across the decades. Ironically, it's the former also-ran Domino's who now rules the pizza empire. While Pizza Hut focused on the gimmicks and Little Caesar floundered on its definition of value, Domino's went back to doing what it did best, delivering pizzas, and trying not to get anyone killed in the process. In 2008, Domino's released the Pizza Tracker, which allowed customers to use the internet on their phones or computers to see exactly how far along their delivery was. There's been a debate about whether the tracker actually worked or if it was just set on a timer, but who really cares?
Pizza time.
The illusion of control and a visual timer tickled customers' brains, more than double-stuffed cheese bread or buckets of spaghetti. Arguably, Postmates and Uber Eats owe a lot to Domino's Tracker and its early adoption of the food delivery surveillance novelty app. In 2018, Domino's finally overtook Pizza Hut in sales. As a victory lap, Domino's has subsequently resurrected the Dominator label for pizzas in territories like Bangladesh and Pakistan. These aren't the monstrosities of the 1990s, though. Dominator is now just a catchy name for a normal-sized pizza. So in a sense, the Dominator lives on, which is more than can be said for its dearly departed competitors. R.I.P. Bigfoot and Big Cheese. May they rest comfortably in their enormous pizza box graves. As much as these franchises paid in ad dollars for our attention, one timeless adage never occurred to them. Americans' eyes were bigger than our stomachs. At the end of the day, most people would rather have a better pizza, even if there is less of it to go around. Or we're just feeling really, really lazy.
If you were a 90s kid, then odds are you've had a Lunchable or two in your day. The prepackaged snack food, which invites kids to assemble their own sorta meals from a variety of fun ingredients, was the lunchtime treat for a generation of kids. whose parents believed they were providing a healthier option to processed junk food. But where did these mealtime miracles come from? And just how good for us were they? Well, today, we're assembling the stacked-up history of Lunchables. Okay, this one is full of baloney, but in a good way. Thanks to one meat processor, we all know our bologna has a first and last name.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
The Oscar Mayer jingle has become as much a part of American culture as the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance. But while people loved singing about the proper spelling of their bologna's name, by the 1980s, they weren't too high on bologna itself. Consumer habits were trending in the direction of healthier food, and bologna, as it turns out, is kind of terrible for you. Sales stagnated along with other lunch meats, and the marketing department at Oscar Mayer went to DEFCON 1. At the time, one of the company's new hires, Dr. Roddy Hawkins, was looking to make an impression. Inspired by the success of Kraft's Cheese and Crackers product, which came with a little plastic red wand that allowed consumers to spread the cheese on the crackers themselves, Hawkins proposed the concept for the product that would become Lunchables. But Hawkins was really just an idea man, so the concept was then developed by a team that included Bob Drain, Deborah Giarusso, Jeff James, and Tom Bailey. To stress that it was really a meal, the team decided to put the product in a tray that resembled a TV dinner. They kicked around quite a few names for their revolutionary new product, including mini meals, lunch kits, cracker witches, entrees, walk meals, go packs, square meals, fun meals with a Z, snackables, and, we kid you not, smoothie kebabbles. Despite the fact that smoothie kebabbles is objectively the best name, they went with Lunchables. What might have been? Given they were considering names like Fun Meals and Cracker Witches, you'd think Lunchables were to be squarely aimed at children. But you would be wrong. During development, focus groups revealed that Americans were working longer hours and were increasingly having trouble finding time to do things like make lunch for themselves. And to the folks at Oscar Mayer, the solution was Lunchables. But not surprisingly, hungry adults weren't super excited about building a series of tiny sandwiches on crackers. Children, on the other hand, were a different story. Turns out the young'uns were actually pretty excited about the idea of assembling their own lunch sandwiches. Hey, kids like building things. Just look at how many parents Fortnite has bankrupted. Market research also showed that kids were much more likely to experiment with flavor variations, like the now famous pizza Lunchable.
Lunchables pizza.
Finally, pizza.
As a bonus, research also showed that parents enjoyed giving Lunchables to their kids and thought of it like a present that could be delightfully unwrapped, a marketing angle the company would lean into in its product design. It was win-win-win for parents, kids, and the Oscar Mayer Corporation. And from there on out, Lunchables were for kids. Of course, adults scooping up the interactive lunchtime treat wasn't discouraged. According to the company, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/4 to 1/3 of Lunchables are consumed by adults. Never underestimate the power of prepackaged meals. Also, nothing works up an appetite like assembling your meal like a pile of Legos. When Roddy Hawkins pitched his idea for Lunchables to the higher-ups at Oscar Mayer, he demonstrated his confidence in the proposed product by telling them they didn't even have to pay him a salary if they would just give him 1% of the money Lunchables was going to make. Hawkins was joking, but he probably wished he hadn't been after he saw exactly how much money Lunchables turned out to make. Lunchables were test marketed in Seattle, Washington in 1988, and those tests went so well, the product went national the following year. After that, they were an instant hit, selling over $200 million worth of product in just their first year on supermarket shelves. And things only got bigger from there. Research showed an astounding 50% of consumers that tried Lunchables came back for more. Even Hawkins was surprised, later reflecting, "I never dreamed it would be a big product line as it is today. I just knew it could be successfully done." It wouldn't be long until Lunchables were a ubiquitous sight in schools and on playgrounds across America. So, remember how the whole idea of Lunchables was to essentially trick people into buying unhealthy foods that weren't selling? Well, big surprise, but as a result, Lunchables weren't all that nutritious. And it wasn't just the bologna, which, incidentally, according to the USDA, isn't so much meat as it is a paste-like and batter-like poultry product produced by forcing bones with attached edible tissue through a sieve or similar device under high pressure to separate bone from the edible tissue. Just like Ma used to make. On top of that, to save costs, Lunchables came packaged with processed cheese. And to extend shelf life, the crackers were butter crackers. In other words, pretty much every ingredient in Lunchables was the most unhealthy version of that particular food possible in terms of calories, fat, and sodium. Like each ingredient fell into a vat of deliciousness, like a snack food joker. In fact, it was so bad that the CEO of Oscar Mayer's parent company once joked that the healthiest ingredient in Lunchables was the napkin. And to those of you who just asked, what napkin? Ironically, the napkin was later removed to save money. Speaking of cost-cutting, there isn't a 90s kid alive who doesn't get a little teary-eyed thinking about the red plastic stick in pizza Lunchables. What the heck are we talking about? Well, when they were first introduced, pizza Lunchables came packaged with a short red plastic stick that was included to help kids spread the pizza sauce on the crust. But in the early aughts, the red stick mysteriously vanished. Disgruntled consumers threatened revolution, but it did no good. Despite a number of petitions, the stick, which was a victim of cost-cutting like the napkin, was gone for good. And if you're wondering how kids were supposed to spread their sauce on the crust without the stick, the answer is Oscar Mayer didn't know, and Oscar Mayer didn't care. And to be honest, even when we had the stick, most of us just used our fingers anyway. By 1994, after Lunchables had blown up even more in popularity, a prominent pediatric cardiologist tried warning people that they were a, quote, nutritional disaster. Oscar Mayer responded with sarcasm, saying, "There are very few kids out there who will eat rice cakes and tofu." If the cardiologist had a comeback to that, we don't know, because he was presumably pelted to death with Lunchables hurled by hungry children. In all fairness, Oscar Mayer has made several attempts to make Lunchables healthier. For example, at one point they attempted to add carrots and apple slices, but the new ingredients would quickly go bad in the container, and variations that replaced the candy with things like yogurt or fruit simply didn't sell. The free market has spoken, and it doesn't want tofu and rice cakes. Anyone who hasn't been permanently banned from the grocery store for the past 40 years is probably familiar with the standard Lunchables and the legendary pizza Lunchables. But those two were just the tip of the iceberg. Alternate Lunchables configurations include things like extra cheesy pizza, ham and cheddar with vanilla cream cookies, turkey cheddar and crackers, and turkey and American cracker stackers with double-stuffed Oreo cookies. Noteworthy variations from Lunchables past include things like mini burgers, which included 2 small burgers, mustard, a Capri Sun, and some Reese's Pieces. You didn't have to heat up the burgers, but people didn't exactly rave about their taste. Turns out room temperature burgers are a tough sell. There were also Lunchables waffles, which included waffle sticks, syrup, icing, sausage, orange juice, and a cereal bar. It sounds like enough glorious sugar to power any kid through an entire school day, but based on reviews, it didn't quite stack up. Lunchables mini tacos came with tortillas, beef, cheese, taco sauce, a drink, and Nerds candies. And there was an Italian-style chicken variety, which was basically just cold chicken nuggets with marinara sauce and mozzarella cheese. We're veering dangerously into airplane food territory over here, Oscar Mayer. And of course, the popularity of the Lunchables name led to some experimentation with spin-off products. Can't leave money stacked up on the table like so many cracker sandwiches. For example, there were Lunchables Fun Stacks, which included things like s'mores, fudge brownie, marshmallow crispy squares, Chips Ahoy soft cookie and frosting, and Oreo cookies and frosting. We have to admit, cookies and frosting do sound fun. In 2017, the world bought nearly $1.4 billion worth of Lunchables, which is enough to make anyone consider a career in lunch meat. These days, there are about 40 different types available. Popular varieties include chicken pizza, ham and cheddar cracker stackers, pepperoni and mozzarella with crackers, pizza and treatza, mini hot dogs, and ham and American cracker stackers. And just in case there remains any doubt that Oscar Mayer has completely moved on from trying to make the brand nutritious, there are also Lunchables Dunkables. These snacks include varieties like pretzel twists with peanut butter spread and choco chips, as well as matzo sticks with marinara and breadcrumbs. If that doesn't sound bad enough for your waistline, we recommend Lunchables Grilled Cheesies, which sounds like a joke but are all too real. They also come in 2 flavors, original and pepperoni pizza sandwich. And then there's Lunchables Uploaded, which are basically the same thing as regular Lunchables, but with bigger portions, different package art, and a name that sounds like one of the Matrix sequels. In 2023, Oscar Mayer managed to get Lunchables, their fun but admittedly unhealthy line of junk food, approved as an option for school lunch menus across America. If you're wondering how they pulled that off, according to the Washington Post, the weak standards that govern federally subsidized school lunches illustrate the power of the food industry in Congress and the outsized influence of food companies. Higher ingredient costs, labor shortages, and tighter budgets have backed many schools into a corner. As a result, executives at Oscar Mayer's parent company have estimated the the educational food services market to be an untapped opportunity worth $25 billion. So far, there are 2 varieties available: turkey and cheddar cracker stackers and extra cheesy pizza. And in all fairness, the Lunchables they're selling to schools aren't the same ones you get in the supermarket. They've been reformulated to meet federal guidelines about what can be served at schools, so they are technically healthier than regular Lunchables. Long story short, they have a higher protein content, but a lot more sodium. As you can probably imagine, childhood nutrition advocates and many teachers do not agree with the decision to make Lunchables available in school cafeterias. But do we really need to bring up the rice and tofu example again? Until health food starts coming in fun packaging, featuring a mascot riding a skateboard, kids are gonna go with Lunchables every time. And that's the way the Oreo cookies and frosting crumble.
If the essence of the mid-1990s could be distilled into a can, it would surely be a can of Surge, the flyest drink of that bygone era. Some may remember it for its fully loaded citrusy sweetness, others for its rather deranged commercials. But, tragically, it's mostly known as the drink that left us too soon. Today we're asking, whatever happened to Surge? Okay, grab your skateboard and your Green Day Dookie CD, because it's time to kickflip back to 1996. In the 1990s, Coca-Cola was looking for a way to dethrone Mountain Dew as the world's most popular citrus soda for teenage boys. Coke had already tried to outdo the Dew decades before, when they introduced Mellow Yellow to the world in 1979. But they were doomed from the start, and no guest appearance in Days of Thunder was going to fix that. Mellow Yellow just didn't have the same hyperactive, grounded-in-middle-school energy as Mountain Dew, and we're willing to bet it never will. So, if Coke wanted to compete, they needed to develop a whole new recipe. Because this was the 90s, it needed to be something cool and extreme, like a crocodile wearing sunglasses.
Oh man, that was so extreme!
And in 1996, they developed just the thing. They called it Mountain Dew Killer, or MDK for short. Okay, Coke, lighten up. But if Nathan Fielder's Dumb Starbucks taught us anything, you have to be a little more original than that if you want to make it in this world. Enter Urge. Coca-Cola shot across the bow of a Viking ship. Why the weird analogy? Because it was initially a Norwegian exclusive. Urge was the name of MDK's first appearance on the market. It was a hit with the citrus-loving Scandinavians, and it soon found a home in Sweden and Denmark as well. It wasn't long before Urge grew even bigger still, and in 1997, Urge set sail across the ocean blue in a bid to claim Mountain Dew's territory for itself. Already well established in America, Mountain Dew had sprung from humble Tennessee origins, where it once had a country bumpkin for a mascot and used the slogan,
"Mountain Dew tickle your innards, 'cause there's a bang in every bottle."
They should bring that back, because who can resist a cola-slinging bumpkin? But in 1992, PepsiCo rebranded the Dew for a cooler, more youthful audience. They introduced the slogan, "Do the Dew," and started buying up ads that featured BMX bikers and skateboarders.
That's rad.
Mountain Dew soon became synonymous with the X Games, and it wasn't long before every cool kid in town was chugging Mountain Dew while rollerblading past the local library and giving all the books the finger. By 1997, Mountain Dew held 80% of the heavy citrus soda market. If Urge wanted to compete, they'd have to go bigger, hipper, and more extreme. So, Coke renamed the project Surge and dropped $50 million on an ad campaign for Super Bowl 31. There was one problem. Surge was already an existing product on the American market. Its trademark was owned by the Babson Bros, whose Surge milker had been proudly milking cows across America since 1925. Rather than pursue a future in which America's preteens gulped down cartons of extreme milk while tearing up the blacktop on their Razor scooters, the Babson Bros filed a petition to stop Coke's Super Bowl ad campaign. They ended up settling with Coke for an undisclosed amount of money, and the Super Bowl was back on, with Surge's new ads ready to bombard C students everywhere. While Mountain Dew's advertising stuck mostly to established extreme sports, Coke knew that they'd have to step things up if they wanted to outdo the Dew. So, rather than relying on boring old snowboards and parachutes, Coke made up games all their own to show the extremes teenage boys would go just to get their grubby little hands on Surge. In one ad, a group of young men raced towards a bottle of Surge by rolling down a hill in metal barrels. In another, some hockey players beat the lime green pea out of a group of innocent snowmen, one of whom holds the coveted soft drink. And yet another features a violent foot race over a collection of living room furniture in the middle of the street, like an obstacle course made on a severely tight budget. Yeah, we really don't understand that last one either.
Makes no sense.
But nobody needed to understand it. Surge's marketing relied on the pure and utter chaos that teenagers adore. They even went as far as inventing their own words to try and make old ones more exciting. Who needs carbohydrates when you can have
Carbos?
A word that seems to refer to the drink's high maltodextrin content. And within-your-face slogans like
Beat the rush.
And
Life's a scream.
Coke had everything they needed to lure young millennials away from dusty old Mountain Dew and under the crisp new wing of Surge. Unfortunately for Coke, they might have taken things a bit too far. Surge's marketing campaign broadcast into households across America images of geared-up teens wreaking havoc. But by trying to make Surge seem more extreme than Mountain Dew, Coke may have pushed the envelope of what was socially acceptable.
Whoops.
The message to parents was clear. Drinking Mountain Dew will make your kid pick up a skateboard and memorize every level of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Drinking Surge, though, that'll make your kid go nuts. Reports started coming in from schools across the nation. Kids were drinking Surge at school, and they were acting like little maniacs because of it. Although whether the kids were acting out because of the actual contents of the drink, or were merely imitating Surge's dystopian extreme marketing campaign, is unclear. But nuance can't hold a candle to hordes of angry parents. As far as they were concerned, Surge was making their kids crazy, and it had to go. Soon campaigns took off in school districts all over the country to have Surge removed from school vending machines, even though Mountain Dew was allowed to stay. Some schools even banned kids from bringing Surge onto the grounds, like it was a handle of scotch rather than a can of corn syrup and water. Any attempt to bring the black market product into the classroom would result in swift disciplinary action. But what these parents and administrators didn't seem to realize, or didn't seem to care, was that Mountain Dew actually had more caffeine in it than Surge by 4 whole milligrams. Like their kids, they had fallen for Surge's chaotic marketing, and they went after Surge regardless of the facts. In spite of the backlash, or maybe because of it, Surge had strong initial sales. In 1997, Coke sold 69 million cases of Surge, a far cry away from Mountain Dew's 605 million cases. But a good surge towards building Surge's brand into a true Dew competitor. They soon dropped Mountain Dew's market share down to 66% from its previous 80%. Sergio Zima, Coca-Cola's chief marketing officer, and a man whose name matched the bodaciousness of Surge, was the man behind this initial success. Believed by many in his time to be a maverick of the advertising world, he had repeatedly bucked convention and had successfully rebranded Coke's products for a new generation. Wait, I thought that was a Pepsi slogan. Even though Zima was responsible for the notorious failure of New Coke, hey, they can't all be home runs. His image in the industry remained that of the rebel through to the end. A year after Surge's launch, though, Zima resigned from Coca-Cola for disputed reasons, because the guy behind Surge was never going to go quietly. Unfortunately, the vacuum he left behind left Surge in the lurch. Zima was replaced by Charles S. Frenette, a man eager to return Coke to the pre-Zima era of Coca-Cola marketing, and he didn't seem to know how to handle the youth-centered market to which Surge had tethered its brand. In 1998, under Frenette's leadership, Surge's year-over-year sales dropped by almost 25%. That is decidedly not radical. Coke sold under 52 million cases of Surge that year, over 17 million fewer cases than in 1997. All the while, Mountain Dew's sales only increased. Just 1 year later, Surge's sales numbers weren't even half of what they were in 1998. Frenette, for his part, tried to reduce the product's negative stigma with parents, but the effort was futile. Surge would never recover. Finally, in 2003, Coca-Cola discontinued the product altogether, making Surge just another name in the ranks of fallen soft drinks, like 7-Up Gold or that Pepsi Blue bullshit. Almost a decade after Surge's untimely demise, Coca-Cola tried yet again to make Mellow Yellow hip to a new generation. They fell back onto their 1990 idea of tying the product to the high-speed antics of Days of Thunder. And in 2010, Coca-Cola launched a new ad campaign that paired Mellow Yellow with America's favorite pastime, drag racing. They partnered with the National Hot Rod Association and gave away free cans of Mellow Yellow to adoring racing fans across the nation. Even though there isn't much we wouldn't do for a free can of soda, the campaign failed to make a dent in Mountain Dew's sales. And Coca-Cola has since gone back to the drawing board. But whatever happened to Surge? Could it appear on the horizon like Gandalf and restore Coke's Mountain Dew killer? In the years since Surge vanished from the market, multiple communities have popped up across the internet to put pressure on Coke to bring the product back. From SaveSurge.org to the Surge movement, people have digitally shown up by the thousands to show their support for the discontinued soft drink. In fact, the Surge movement was so successful in garnering support that they managed to raise the $4,000 needed to buy a billboard outside of Coca-Cola's Atlanta headquarters. It read, "Dear Coke, we couldn't buy Surge, so we bought this billboard instead." Maybe could have invested in something with a better chance of return, like pop figures or a savings account. But the higher-ups at Coke saw this message, and they responded. More than 10 years after Surge was discontinued, Coke gave it a second shot. In 2014, the company announced that due to pressure from online communities, Surge was once more coming back onto the market. The announcement, made over Facebook, got over 3,000 likes and 700 comments. There was joy in the digital streets as ticker tape rained down on imaginary digital cities. Coca-Cola arranged to sell the soda exclusively through Amazon. For a mere $14, anyone could buy 12 16-ounce cans of Surge from Papa Bezos himself, and no parents or school administrators would be around this time to stop them. The anticipation was so great that the initial stock of Surge sold out in just 2 hours. Coke refilled the stock, and it sold out again that same day. But the resurgence was short-lived. It wasn't long before the product disappeared again. For the next few years, Surge scalpers took advantage of its absence, selling the product for jacked-up prices as rumors swirled of its official return. But in 2018, Surge reappeared once more in the most royal of places. Through an exclusive deal with Burger King, Surge briefly rented a room in Coke's freestyle soda machines across America. What's more, Burger King even gave the drink its own limited-time slushie. It's good to be king. All good things must come to an end, though, and Surge seems to have wandered off and disappeared once again. But for those of you who can't wait for Surge to show back up, there's hope. Remember Urge, the Norwegian predecessor to Surge? It never went off the market, and is still just one quick cruise line away from being yours. While it trades Surge's toxic green look for a muddy brown color, and according to some the recipes aren't quite identical, Urge may just be the only hope for getting your Surge fix anytime soon. So until Coke decides to bring our favorite can of Shrek blood back, you'll just have to feel the urge. The urge to surge. Looking back, it now seems like the 1990s were a simpler, more innocent time of grunge music, frosted tips, and unapologetically sugary snack foods. But many 90s snacks were ultimately discontinued in later years, leaving millennials nostalgic for a time when they could trade their favorite snacks over the cafeteria table. So, today, we're going to take a look at some facts about 90s lunchbox items that make us kind of miss school. Okay, time to snack on some sweet, sweet snack food history. String cheese may be the greatest innovation in the subdivision of food since sliced bread, and it came from exactly where you think it would. Wisconsin, the land of cheese. Specifically, it was invented by Frank Baker of Baker Cheese, a family-owned company that has been making cheese for more than 100 years. In the 1960s, with pizza rising in popularity, the company transitioned from specializing in cheddar cheese to mozzarella. This, in turn, led customers to ask Baker for smaller units of snackable mozzarella cheese. The feedback may have led Baker to become the first person to create string cheese by cutting mozzarella into ropes and then soaking the ropes in salt brine to make them string. According to his grandson, Brian, Baker then took the string cheese to the local bar to share with the patrons. In fact, his whole marketing plan was essentially showing up at parties and taverns and handing out free samples. You know, like a drug dealer. Taste testers found that the string cheese was easy to snack on.
Bellissimo!
With a mild, pleasant flavor that wasn't stinky as many cheeses can be. And of course, it was stringy, which everyone thought was cool. So it became extremely popular among the bargoers. However, its eventual status as a staple kids snack wasn't anything Baker had intended. He once stated, "String cheese certainly wasn't targeted specifically to kids. It was meant to be a functional, high-quality piece of cheese you could peel and stretch." Although he probably wasn't upset about all those kids' lunch sales. Bite-sized Baby Bell cheeses were all the rage in the 1990s. Between them and string cheese, it's tempting to believe the 1990s were some kind of cheese renaissance, or cheese-assance. But it was just coincidence, as far as we know. The Baby Bell brand, as part of France's Bell Group, actually dates all the way back to the mid-19th century, although the famous laughing cow logo wouldn't be trademarked until 1921. Maybe one day that cow will let us in on the joke. If you've ever wondered why mini Baby Bells are called mini despite only coming in one size, you're not alone. According to the company, they're meant to be miniature cheese wheels, a smaller version of the original Baby Bell cheese wheels from France. This makes the mini Baby Bells especially handy when you want to pretend you're a giant.
I'm huge!
The mini cheese wheels were first released in 1977 and, in the United States, have pretty much completely supplanted the full-sized wheels. It is still possible to order these larger wheels in France, where they're sold as Baby Bell Maxi. But will it fit in a lunchbox? In 1969, humans walked on the moon, and Bryan Adams got his first real six-string at the 5 and dime. But that's not all that happened. The first Capri Sun pouches were also manufactured in 1969 in Eppelheim, Germany, under the brand name Capri Zona. But the brand wouldn't reach international acclaim until a decade later, when they hired a great new spokesman, the greatest of all time, heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali. According to the Juice brand's website, it was the first endorsement deal the boxing legend accepted. Guess he was really into fruit juice. In the 1980s, the company aggressively marketed the drink to youngsters with commercials that featured a catchy jingle which memorably touted, "There's only one Capri Sun. It's great tasting fun when you punch open one." Kids seem to really take to the drink's trademark foil pouches, even though they're more difficult to open than Hellraiser's puzzle box. By the 1990s, Capri Sun was a staple of lunchboxes across America. Handy snacks are perfect for those moods when nothing but spreading a cheese-like substance on crackers with a tiny red plastic stick will do. Anyone tucking into a handy snack today would likely be filled with warm, nostalgic memories of school lunches past. Except now, you have to bring your own stick. And it's not some sort of packaging mistake. Despite being the snack's most memorable feature, the plastic spreading utensils that used to be included with handy snacks, and pizza Lunchables for that matter, are no more. Parent company Ritz explained in 2019 that the red sticks were discontinued in order to be more eco-friendly, because most people throw the sticks away rather than recycle them. It also doesn't hurt that cutting the sticks probably saved them a lot of money to boot. More cheddar for everyone! Or a cheddar substitute. However, environmental concerns have not been enough to stop frustrated snackers from petitioning both Lunchables and Handy Snacks to reinstate the sticks. A lot of great things have come from Canada. Trivial Pursuit, John Candy, the band Rush, and Dunkaroos. Yeah, we thought they were from Australia too. First launched in America's neighbor to the north in the early 1990s, Dunkaroos are a fiendishly simple lunchtime snack, although they really stretched the definition of both those words. In case you've never dunked before, contained in each package of Dunkaroos are a handful of honey graham cookies and a thimble's worth of cake frosting. And it's absolutely as awesome as it sounds. However, despite its huge popularity in the 90s, in 2012, the treat, for reasons that remain mysterious to this day, was discontinued in the United States. But they kept going strong in the land of Neil Young and Ryan Reynolds. So 4 years later, Dunkaroos owner General Mills launched its Smuggleroos campaign, encouraging traveling Canadians to buy some Dunkaroos and share them with their deprived American friends. According to General Mills marketing director Jason Doolin, the campaign was started in part to crack down on the Dunkaroos black market, which was hawking the snack online to desperate Americans for sky-high prices. Luckily, order was restored in 2020, and Dunkaroos made their triumphant return to the good old US of A. In the 1970s, Louis Chalhoub of Joseph Chalhoub & Son Incorporated, a company that goes all the way back to 1886, developed a product that would become known as Joré Fruit Rolls. The apricot-based snack was basically dried fruit paste on cellophane sheets that were then rolled up, and may have been inspired by a Lebanese snack called amardine. Fruit rolls came in a variety of flavors, and they were relatively popular in parts of the United States in the 1980s. But they weren't popular enough to prevent the fairly similar fruit roll-ups, introduced by General Mills under their Betty Crocker brand in 1983, from stealing their thunder. In 2012, Betty Crocker Snacks presented the New York Knicks superstar Jeremy Lin with a basketball jersey made out of fruit roll-ups, after he tweeted about his love of fruit snacks. Note to Jeremy, next time, tweet about how much you love chocolate frosting. Fruit rolls are still going strong today, and for what it's worth, Joray fruit rolls are still out there too. Speaking of stretchy fruit-like snacks made by General Mills, it's time to unroll the classic lunchroom snack and ruler substitute, Fruit by the Foot. Debuting in the early 90s and still available pretty much everywhere today, the fruit-flavored snack has been a perennial favorite, not only because you can measure drywall while eating it, but also because of its extreme sweetness. And we do mean extreme. While Fruit by the Foot does provide a somewhat decent serving of vitamin C, Time magazine reports that the 3-foot treat actually consists of 48% sugar by weight. The only other thing we could think of that is 48% sugar by weight is a bag of sugar. Nonetheless, Fruit by the Foot was a hit and remains popular today, thanks in part to some creative marketing.
It's awesome.
Back in 1999, Fruit by the Foot made themselves indispensable to video gamer kids by partnering up with Nintendo to include game tips on the packaging. And more recently, Fruit by the Foot became the focus of a viral speed eating challenge while the world was on lockdown in 2020. 1984's Ghostbusters was a massive hit, so it was spun off into a cartoon show in a move that surprised no one. The Real Ghostbusters debuted in 1986, featuring the whole team of Ghostbusters and their little green ghost buddy, Slimer, who was much less friendly in the film. The character was expected to be wildly popular, and that meant lucrative product endorsements. That endorsement came from the people at High C, a division of Coca-Cola, a company that already had a highly visible product placement in the Ghostbusters movie. Seriously, count all the Coke cans next time you watch it. They outnumber the ghosts. Launched as a tie-in product with the Real Ghostbusters animated series, High C's Ecto Cooler offered a delicious orange and tangerine flavor. And it came in a color reminiscent of the ghostly Slimer, because apparently kids wanted to drink him. The flavor turned out to be so popular it actually outlasted the Ghostbusters cartoon. Mental Floss reports that after Ecto Cooler was discontinued, it was re-released under the Shoutin' Orange Tanger Green label. And in 2006, this flavor was again rebranded as Crazy Citrus Cooler. Now, if they could only get Bill Murray to say, "You crazy citrus coolered me." The candy that would eventually become known as Warheads on account of their punishingly sour taste was invented in Taiwan in 1975, but didn't arrive in the United States until 1993. Originally known as Mega Warheads, Warheads were marketed in packages featuring a mascot named Wally Warhead, who is depicted with puckered lips and an exploding head. Because these ain't your granddaddy sour candies. So what gives a Warhead such a sour punch? Well, it's actually a combination of citric acid, like the kind you find in lemons and limes, and malic acid, which is found in apples and is considered to be one of the sourest substances a human can safely eat. Of course, that doesn't explain how Warheads can stay sour for so long. It's possibly due to an ancient curse, but it could also be a feature of the candy's hydrogenated palm oil coating, which Wired magazine speculates acts as an invisible time-release mechanism for the sour flavor. Fruit Gushers, also sometimes marketed as just plain Gushers, are made by the omnipresent Betty Crocker, who is not a person but a division of General Mills. The acorn-shaped snacks, which originally came in flavors like Strawberry Splash and Gushin' Grape, are made from a soft, chewy candy with a few drops of alleged fruit juice at the center. Despite being one of the most popular fruit snacks ever created, Fruit Gushers are arguably more famous for its weird commercials. As in, commercials that feature kids turning into hideous fruit mutants. Or would that be fruitants? But in case that's not strange enough, there's always Gusher for an Eye. Gusher for an Eye was a 90-second web video about a boy who was born with a gusher for an eye. And we get to watch him stroll through life squirting his delicious eye juice into the mouths of thirsty strangers. It is the scariest movie ever made. But it wasn't a failure. The commercial was created by the Saatchi & Saatchi advertising agency and made the shortlist for the 2011 Clios, which is sort of like the Academy Awards of advertising. So take that, non-weaponized fruit snacks.
For kids in the 90s, there were few better microwave meal options than the noble Hot Pocket, a simple turnover stuffed with pizza. The Hot Pocket inspired as much loyalty as fear among its fans, as its ability to burn the hell out of your mouth became the stuff of schoolyard legend. But where did they come from? Who invented this lava-filled rectangle of gratitude? And how did it go from a freezer aisle oddity to a staple of school lunches, late nights, and microwave roulette? Well, today, we're peeling back the crisping sleeve to find out how Hot Pockets dominated the 90s. Okay, not to nitpick, but it's really more of a pouch than a pocket. The Hot Pocket wasn't born in a lab or conjured by a wizard with access to frozen food. It was created, like all great American inventions, by two ambitious guys looking to feed people something hot, cheap, and fast. Meet Paul and David Mirage, two Iranian Jewish brothers who immigrated to the US in the 1960s and decided to make their mark on the American food scene. They started with a company called Chef America Inc., which, despite sounding like a temp service for budget superheroes, was a food operation out of Colorado. The Mirages originally created a line of stuffed sandwiches in the late 1970s under the name Tasty Witch. Despite being an early version of the microwave treat that would make them kings, the Tasty Witch didn't take off. Possibly because Tasty Witch is the socks and sandals of food names. But it was the proto-pocket. Tasty Witch was an early attempt at a quick, microwavable sandwich. Soft bread, filled with meat and cheese, and designed for the office lunch crowd. Unfortunately, the bread got soggy. The texture was weird, and America wasn't quite ready for that kind of sacrifice. But the Mirage brothers didn't give up. In 1983, they rebranded. They took the same general concept, tweaked the crust, adjusted the fillings, and gave it a name that sounded like a sci-fi survival food: Hot Pockets. It worked. Hot Pockets were essentially a frozen turnover, but without any of the elegance. A rectangle of dough, filled with something vaguely meat-like, sealed within a food sarcophagus, and ready to nuke. What made the Hot Pockets a hit where Tasty Witch struck out, apart from the name obviously? Well, the Mirage brothers had solved the sogginess problem. They developed a patented crisping sleeve, a cardboard miracle lined with sus-level science that somehow made a microwaved Hot Pocket feel toasty, crisp, and flaky. What the Hot Pocket lacked in elegance was made up for by its sheer efficiency. They were fast, portable, perfect for a microwave culture on the rise. It didn't care if you respected it, it just needed you to be hungry and low on time. So how did this humble pocket of filling become a freezer aisle staple? At first, Hot Pockets were marketed toward adults, especially workers looking for a fast lunch. Office break rooms across America started to hum with the smell of molten ham and cheese, and the crisping sleeve became a common sight next to vending machines and those coffee pots nobody ever cleaned. But the real explosion came when they pivoted toward teenagers. By the late 80s, the microwave was king. It wasn't just for reheating coffee, it was a battleground for after-school snacks. And Hot Pockets were perfectly engineered for latchkey kids everywhere. You got home, you were starving, your mom and dad were at work, you wanted pizza. Enter the pepperoni pizza Hot Pocket. They weren't an overnight cultural icon, but they were a slow, steady burn. Literally and figuratively. Sales rose, variants multiplied, people started comparing them to calzones, empanadas, and science projects gone deliciously wrong. From the jump, Hot Pockets offered flavors like ham and cheese and pepperoni pizza, but they quickly expanded the menu to include beef taco, barbecue beef, sausage, egg and cheese, meatball and mozzarella, Philly cheesesteak, and chicken broccoli and cheese, the one you buy when your parents are coming to visit so they think you're eating well. Some were hits, some were disasters. Some, like chicken pot pie, were quietly discontinued and never spoken of again. There were even briefly apple cinnamon Hot Pockets, which tasted like if a McDonald's pie had anxiety. Despite being a radical new product, the marketing for Hot Pockets was comparatively mild at first, relying mostly on print ads and coupons. There was no full-on Hot Pocket revolution campaign in the 80s, but they crept into America's consciousness like food fog, unnoticed until suddenly they were everywhere. Now we enter the golden age of chaotic food, the 1990s. the time of snap bracelets, dial-up internet, and an arms race of microwavable, pizza-adjacent snacks for kids. Hot Pockets duked it out with Bagel Bites, Totino's Pizza Rolls, Pizza Pockets, and at one point, microwavable pizza on a stick. Yes, pizza on a stick. The marketing during this time escalated. Totino's had high-energy commercials.
I love Totino!
Bagel Bites created an all-time jingle that's still stuck in your brain.
When pizza's on a bagel, you can eat pizza anytime.
Meanwhile, Hot Pockets leaned into the brand identity of being cheesy, portable, and available just about everywhere in a cornucopia of varieties, including Lean Pockets. If you said there's no way any radical 90s kid would reach for something called Lean Pockets, you're absolutely right. Lean Pockets were strictly marketed to adults who needed to eat on the go but wanted to chow down on something slightly less terrible for your health, deliciousness notwithstanding. Instead of layers of pizza, Lean Pockets had whole wheat crusts, reduced fat cheese, and filling options like chicken spinach artichoke or broccoli cheddar and chicken. But Lean Pockets have never quite caught on. They've been discontinued, revived, and discontinued again, like the will they won't they of the freezer aisle. By the late 90s, Hot Pockets were everywhere, and even though Bagel Bites and pizza rolls held strong, Hot Pockets stood out. They weren't snacks, they were meals. They were big, bold, and aggressively filling, like burritos crammed full of pizza. Ultimately, Hot Pockets came out on top, and not only because of the bigger portions, flexibility, and crossover appeal between kids and adults. Eventually, they got a secret weapon, the crisping sleeve. Officially called a susceptor, the Hot Pocket sleeve is lined with a metallic material that absorbs microwave energy and reflects heat back onto the crust. In other words, it turns your microwave oven into a classic oven. This invention changed the game because before the sleeve, Hot Pockets were either mushy with frozen centers,
Hot on the outside, icicle in the middle,
or rock hard with explosive filling.
My f***ing mouth!
With the sleeve, they became crispier and flakier and even more appealing than before. But they were still hot, dangerously hot. Hot Pockets don't court controversy. They're tiny folded meat pouches, and they're only here to please. However, as anyone who has ever bitten into a fresh-from-the-wave Hot Pocket can tell you, the laws of thermodynamics do not apply. The outer crust is warm. The inside is the surface of the sun. That first bite is a test of faith and enamel. We all have a story and a battle scar. And it's not just you. People have definitely been injured. For instance, in 2009, a man in Texas sued Nestle, who now owns the Hot Pockets brand, after biting into one and suffering second-degree burns on his mouth and throat. He claimed the filling shot out like lava, which surprised no one because it's accurate. Every package of Hot Pockets you see today contains an urgent warning label about the dangers of biting into a pocket that is too hot. The brand also dealt with some dramatic product recalls. One in 2014 over millions of pounds of contaminated meat that had found their way into some Hot Pockets. And again in 2021 after slivers of plastic and glass were found in 2 varieties. Hey, pain is part of the Hot Pocket experience. But sometimes bad press really is good press. In the early 2000s, comedian Jim Gaffigan released a stand-up bit about Hot Pockets that became an early viral hit. He called them everything that's wrong with America in a pastry. He made fun of the temperature, the flavor, the packaging, the sadness.
Hot Pockets!
It was brutal, and Hot Pockets loved it. Sales didn't drop. In fact, they rose. Gaffigan made Hot Pockets part of the cultural conversation. They were in on the joke.
You're the Hot Pocket guy.
For a while, Hot Pockets even leaned into the absurdity in their marketing. Because here's the truth. You don't eat a Hot Pocket because it's good. You eat it because it's Hot Pocket time. Hot Pockets are still here. Scalding tongues and filling freezers with varieties like 4-cheese pizza, ham and cheese, buffalo-style chicken, high-protein steak and cheddar, pretzel crust cheeseburger, and breakfast bacon, egg, and cheese. Meanwhile, the croissant crust line is still trying to make gourmet Hot Pockets happen. Those words were never meant to be that close together. Hot Pockets has even embraced social media. There was a TikTok campaign, a Twitch gaming partnership, and a Brackets of Flavor March Madness-style contest to let fans vote on their favorites. But have they gotten any better? Or are they still next to the ice cream on the guilty pleasure shelf in the freezer? Yes and no. They cook faster. The crust is less chewy. There are more high-protein and low-fat options. But the core experience is the same. You toss one of these babies into the microwave and then eat it as fast as you can without going to a burn ward. Because in the end, Hot Pockets aren't just a snack. They're a rite of passage. Let's see Lean Cuisine pull that off.
Anyone who grew up in the 1990s probably has warm, fuzzy, carbonated memories of Crystal Pepsi. The most iconic product of the clear cola craze, Crystal Pepsi was supposed to be the next big thing, but it fizzled out almost as soon as it arrived. So what happened? Well, today we're unbottling why Crystal Pepsi disappeared. Okay, right now, catch a magic moment, do it right here and now. It beats the Twister soundtrack. Crystal Pepsi was first released in 1992, making its debut in a limited number of regional guinea pig markets, including Denver, Colorado, Sacramento, California, Dallas, Texas, and Providence, Rhode Island. They love invisible soda in Rhode Island.
Well, what if you're drinking a regular Pepsi and somebody's coming at you with a knife? Huh? You won't be able to see them past your Pepsi.
After establishing that there was a cry, nay, a demand, for a smooth, clear, cola-esque beverage, the company opted to release the product to stores nationwide. By 1993, supermarkets across the nation had received an influx of Crystal Pepsi, but by then, it wasn't the only brand of clear soda on the shelves, for the new generation or otherwise. The success that Pepsi had seen in their trial run of the product had leaked out to competitors, particularly their chief competitor, Coca-Cola. Smelling an opportunity, Coke decided to jump into the new market with its own brand of clear soda, Tab Clear. Before interested consumers could even decide which one they preferred, they found themselves in the middle of a full-blown clear cola battle royale. Shoppers were quickly inundated with more clear soda options than they knew what to do with, and the intense competition didn't turn out to be good for anyone involved. The clear craze hit the tail end of the 1980s, the decade that kneecapped Coca-Cola like Tony Soprano with the disastrous release of New Coke. The big red one could ill afford another massive public failure. So on December 14th, 1982, just 1 week after the Van Hagar-ific debut of Crystal Pepsi, Coca-Cola decided it was time to roll up their corn syrup-stained sleeves and release their very own clear soda in an effort to compete. Or so it seemed. You see, rather than going with the more obvious clear Coke, Coke sold their crystal beverage as Tab Clear, claiming that they wanted to avoid creating too direct a competition with its own Coke-specific label. They then added insult to injury by stating that clear Coke is an oxymoron, and that to create a clear Coke modeled directly off of Pepsi's would simply be aiming too low. They must have still been feeling that New Coke indigestion. Still, many critics said that Coca-Cola's design to align their clear marketing push with Tab, an offshoot brand marketed almost exclusively to older women, would place limits on customer interest and essentially hand the market over to Pepsi. In truth, there was much more devious reasoning at work behind the strategy. Years later, Coke executives would admit that they chose Tab to be the competitor in an effort to deliberately confuse customers into thinking Crystal Pepsi was a diet soda, diet sodas being significantly less popular than regular brands. In other words, Tab Clear was specifically designed to fail as a product and take Crystal Pepsi down with it. And after just a few months, the plan worked like a charm. As it became the trend for many companies year after year, Pepsi decided to promote their big new product at the Super Bowl. With the help of a commercial that aligned almost perfectly with the early 90s consumer ideals, Crystal Pepsi was strewn across television sets nationwide, accompanied by the sounds of Van Halen's hit single, Right Now. The commercial featured images of the clear soda alongside allegedly inspiring video clips. Most memorably, a series of bizarre and puzzling images of an animated baby who appeared to be crawling around in what might be a desert or the bottom of the ocean. That was followed promptly by a chaotically spinning watch, a reminder that, right now, computers still can't laugh, shots of animals running in the wild, and other such allegedly thought-provoking imagery. The end result looked like Dan Brown and the Zodiac Killer in a secret message fight. What was the point of all the weird imagery? Apparently, the message was intended to convey that there's no time like the present to enjoy a pure, crisp, clear Crystal Pepsi. So drink it right now. And the marketing execs felt a cartoon baby and existential thought experiments about robots would be the perfect way to get their point across. The 90s were indeed mysterious. Though many of Crystal Pepsi's supporters originally believed the innovative soda was akin to when the chocolate industry began to sell white chocolate, it quickly became apparent such predictions were wishful thinking, like Nostradamus buying a scratch ticket. Due at least in part to an oversaturated market, the clear cola craze didn't last long in the US or abroad.
That's weird. You don't expect something that white to taste like cocoa.
Within a year of Crystal Pepsi's initial release, the market became so inundated with copycat sodas and a host of other clear products that consumers got burned out. Pepsi had no choice but to dramatically scale back the product and rethink the brand. After the unanticipated downfall of the Crystal Pepsi launch in 1993, PepsiCo pulled the product from shelves and tried to reinterpret its clear cola goals from a new lens. The result was two eerily similar products, both sporting the same visual appeal as Crystal Pepsi, but each with a slight twist of their own. The first variation on the original, released soon after the total and, quite frankly, rude deletion of Crystal Pepsi, was simply called Crystal. Despite appearing incredibly similar to the original product and having virtually the same name, Crystal was actually a citrus-flavored beverage rather than another clear soda. The second and final variation came up a year later in 1995 under PepsiCo's sub-brand 7-Up and was called 7-Up Ice Cola. As if taking a page from Coca-Cola's book, PepsiCo executives decided to use the smaller brand for this experiment. It's like getting your least favorite friend to try the trampoline first. Ironically, Pepsi didn't know yet the real reason Coke had selected Tab to compete with Crystal Pepsi, so they likely just assumed that it was safer than risking their flagship product's name once again. And in a rare case of double irony, Pepsi's misunderstanding of Coca-Cola's Tab Clear strategy turned out to be a good decision, as both Crystal and 7-Up Ice quickly went flat. In 2013, a now defunct satire website known as the Wall Street Sentinel made an announcement that put the small but excitable community of clear soda lovers on high alert. Crystal Pepsi would make a valiant return to supermarket shelves in early 2014. Whether nobody noticed the report came from a joke website or they just wanted to believe in a gentler universe, the news was taken at face value by enough people for the story of the clear soda's return to go viral. Whatever the case, the Examiner quickly got to the bottom of the rumors and debunked them by February 2014, to the dismay of Crystal Pepsi fans everywhere. It seemed their cola was doomed to bitter opacity forevermore. Just as the memory of Crystal Pepsi once again began to fade from public consciousness, a trained competitive eater named Kevin Strahl literally heaved the beverage back into pop culture relevance. Thanks to a 2013 viral YouTube video in which Strahl quickly drained every drop of a 2-decade-old bottle of the stuff, and then 45 seconds later expelled every last drop of it, passion for the soda was reignited. In the video, Strahl expresses misgivings about drinking the soda, which he says he paid too much money for. Given that, at the time of the recording, the bottle was 20 years old, we tend to agree. Soda doesn't age so much as congeal. Deciding to drink it anyway, he says he hopes it will be like getting in a time machine with Doc Brown back to 1993 so he can feel like a kid again. Things take a turn for the worse after his first few sips. Apparently deciding to just rip off the Band-Aid, the YouTuber chugs the rest, at which point his body rejects the soda harder than Van Halen fans rejected Gary Cherone. If you're planning to seek out the video, we advise you to tread carefully around the 3-minute and 50-second mark and beyond. Despite the fact that the drink made him purge his Pepsi, the video's viral success, for some weird reason, led to the beginning of an internet petition to bring back Crystal Pepsi, hopefully in a more glamorous way than Strahl's stomach brought it back. Nearly 2 decades after the failed experiment that was Crystal Pepsi, Strahl's viral video led to a resurgence in popular demand for the beverage that caught the attention of the PepsiCo marketing team. In response, they decided to launch a consumer study to determine whether bringing the soda back full-time would be worthwhile. And so, the Crystal Pepsi Sweepstakes was born. In a 24-hour submission crunch, people were invited to use 1,000 of their Pepsi Pass points to enter the sweepstakes through either the Pepsi mobile app or the company's website. It was a pretty bold assumption that consumers would be familiar enough with Pepsi's reward system to readily take advantage of the sweepstakes, but it was likely just another way to get people to buy Pepsi. The prize? A 6-pack of highly sought-after Crystal Pepsi. And for those who hadn't gathered enough Pepsi stubs to reach the 1,000-point threshold, Pepsi generously provided promo codes for the value on their social media accounts. The company then selected 13,000 lucky winners to receive the transparent 6-packs. On August 8, 2016, Crystal Pepsi made a surprising return to supermarket shelves thanks to an apparent resurrection of consumer demand. Due in part to a Change.org petition, Pepsi decided it was time to give the defunct soda another go. Using a scarcity tactic to entice customers to buy, Pepsi announced the limited release of Crystal Pepsi in both the US and Canada with a 20-ounce can priced at $1.79 in US dollars. While no one knows exactly why PepsiCo brought back the product just then, some believe the sudden resurfacing of the drink could have something to do with the fact that soda sales in the US had been plummeting, and execs were keen for a way to revive some interest and goodwill. In an interview with Fast Company, David Novak, the person credited with the creation of Crystal Pepsi, provided his own insights on the subtle rise and sudden fall of the clear soda phenomenon. Asked about what he took away from that debacle, Novak called the whole thing a tremendous learning experience. He went on to explain that while he still thought it was the best idea he ever had, he admitted the execution left a lot to be desired. In Novak's own words, people were saying we should stop and address some issues along the way. And they were right. It would have been nice if I'd made sure the product tasted good. There's a reason Sammy Hagar never got a Crystal Pepsi tattoo to go with his Cabo Wabo ink. The sobriety with which Novak is able to reflect on the failure of a product so close to his heart shows how dedicated PepsiCo was to making the beverage work. After all, you don't drop all that coinage on Van Halen and the Super Bowl to cancel the drink a year later. However, whether he was right that an improved flavor or a different marketing strategy would have saved the beverage will likely remain a mystery. For now, Crystal Pepsi haunts the collective nostalgia like a ghost, which is appropriate because it's invisible. Despite what the brochure you got from that animatronic monkey may have told you, themed restaurants were not invented by Rainforest Cafe in the 1990s. People have been throwing down cash at novelty eateries since the 1930s, but the 90s experienced a boom in gimmicky chow houses, the likes of which hasn't been the same since. So today, we're going to take a look at the craziest themed restaurants from the 90s. Okay, time to get thematic. If there's one thing Hollywood does better than anyone, it's endlessly recycling profitable ideas until people lose interest in them. And the idea for Planet Hollywood did come from a movie producer. His name was Keith Barish, and his basic pitch was to do a version of the Hard Rock Cafe for movie fans. The Hard Rock's owner, Robert Earl, loved the idea, and he reasoned that movie stars could be persuaded to help promote the chain through a deal by which they would receive a portion of ownership in exchange for appearing at restaurant openings staged to look like film premieres. And he was right. Who wouldn't want to walk the red carpet with a basket of chicken tenders named after a Schwarzenegger movie, Predator? In 1991, Planet Hollywood opened its doors in New York City with the backing of major movie stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone. As envisioned, it was a movie premiere-style spectacle with the marquee backers and other celebrities in attendance.
Well, it's kind of like a party at my place on a Friday night, except I don't have the celebrities or the carpet or Elton John doesn't sing, but other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Things went well for a while, and Planet Hollywood grew to over 100 locations, but the chain wouldn't prove to have the staying power of the Hard Rock. Planet Hollywood started losing money quickly. After its first Las Vegas casino venture failed, stocks fell, and the celebrity backers began jumping ship. As of 2023, there are just 6 restaurants and 5 Planet Hollywood branded hotels still operating. Huh, small world. In the world of wrestling, there's nothing bigger than the WWE, which back in the 1990s, prior to some legal action by the World Wildlife Fund, was still called the WWF. Presumably, there was some confusion when people in denim vests kept showing up to wildlife fundraisers and suplexing the pandas. In 1999, WWF chairman Vince McMahon opened the first and what would ultimately be only location in the Paramount Theater in New York's Times Square. The place was a combination restaurant, nightclub, and souvenir shop that even had a barricaded cage room where hopefully you'd be allowed to challenge your server to a test of strength to earn their tip. Pay-per-view events were broadcast directly from the restaurant itself, and shows like Monday Night Raw would often use the location in various segments, and the dishes were all themed around wrestlers. So, like Macho Nachos and a Hulk Hoagie, I guess. No, wait, Hogan's should be a hot dog. The place even turned up in WWF video games. In 2002, when the WWF became the WWE, the restaurant was renamed The World. Apparently, the concept of wrestling had also sued Vince McMahon, but the rebrand didn't last long. The WWE decided to get out of the restaurant business, and the New York location closed in 2003. If iconic film director Steven Spielberg were to open a themed restaurant, what do you think the theme would be? One of his blockbuster movies, perhaps? Nope, the answer was submarines. Come on, guys, Jaws. It was right there. Built like a giant yellow submarine and hosting a nautical theme, diners at the restaurant called Dive were given the illusion that they were eating deep under the sea, like the people trapped in the galley on the Titanic.
Food is really different, the decor is terrific.
According to the restaurant's advertising, patrons were invited to enjoy sublime food in a playful submerged environment with bubbling porthole windows, gauges, an underwater video voyage, and working periscope with panoramic city views. In case you couldn't tell, the place was submarine themed. And it was all Spielberg's idea, apparently inspired by his little-known love of the sea and underwater exploration. He and producing partner Jeffrey Katzenberg, who later teamed up with Spielberg to create DreamWorks, devised the plan for Dive in 1993. The restaurant's first location opened in Los Angeles in 1994. As advertised, the restaurant was bedecked in nautical finery, and every 45 minutes, there was a 30-second submerging of the submarine-shaped eatery. The portholes bubbled over, lights flashed, and submarine moans and groans filled the dining room. Because nothing makes a meal more unforgettable than the simulated threat of violent implosion. Despite being a well-known hangout for celebrities, the original LA site closed in 1999. And while steady souvenir sales kept a second location in Las Vegas open a little longer, it finally closed in the early 2000s.
All three of us have Jewish mothers that says it's good to have a little something on the side.
Except my mother saw Dive, and her first comment was, "That's the biggest piece of trafe I've ever seen."
The first American Girl Cafe opened in 1998 at the American Girl Place store in Chicago. Billed as doll-friendly dining, the eateries were designed as a way to make a trip to an American Girl store an even more memorable outing. Or at least, to keep kids there a little longer so that they might annoy their parents into buying more doll accessories. The eateries in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago are large, somewhat frilly affairs, while other locations are known as bistros and are significantly smaller. And while not all American Girl stores have a cafe, all of the American Girl cafes have special seats for diners' dolls to join them at the table. And if you don't have your own doll to bring with you, don't worry. Diners are offered the chance to borrow one if they so desire. Man, is there any part of this experience that doesn't sound like a saw trap? Ever wish you could eat dinner on Mars? In the year 2112 specifically? Well, back in 1998, a guy named Pascal M. Phelan had that same dream, but instead of whining about it like you, he opened Mars 2112. The restaurant's theme was space travel, and diners ate amongst alien and spaceship decor, like an indoor kid's bedroom. The elevator looked like a UFO, the dishes all had space-related names, and the employees all wore futuristic regalia.
I know I was awfully nervous the first time I met interstellar royalty.
Phelan described the place as a fusion of fun and good food and fantasy, which honestly doesn't sound so bad, but it does sound like a lot of work for a hamburger. When the New York City location opened in Times Square in November of 1998, it was the largest themed restaurant in the world, standing 3 stories tall. In 2000, a second location opened in a mall in Schaumburg, Illinois, because as the famous song about New York goes, if you can make it there, you can make it in Schaumburg, Illinois. Mars 2112 struggled to make ends meet and actually filed for bankruptcy twice. After an incident in 2011 where the New York location famously refused to let Shaquille O'Neal in because he wasn't dressed properly, things got dicey. How could you not be dressed properly for the space diner? Did they want him to wear a helmet? And while the Shaq debacle may not be the direct cause, the Times Square site, and the franchise with it, closed in 2012. Founded by Mort Bank, who previously operated several themed McDonald's. Wait, you can own a themed McDonald's? The first Space Aliens Grill and Bar opened in Bismarck, North Dakota in 1997, before expanding into a handful of other locations. there's still one open in Fargo. Yep, Fargo. The restaurants are decorated with alien-themed furnishings, have large dome ceilings painted to look like outer space, and include plenty of space-centric games for kids. The dining areas, which have names like the Bar for Mars and Area 51, serve American food. Most popular item on the menu are fire-roasted pizza and barbecued ribs, just like Mom made back at home planet Zebulon. There's plenty of Space Aliens merchandise if you want something to take home with you, including Space Aliens clothing, beverage containers, spices, and sauces. Today, Space Aliens Grill and Bar continues to go where few themed restaurants of the 90s have gone before, into sustained profitability. Remember Robert Earl? He was the owner of the Hard Rock Cafe and one of the people behind Planet Hollywood. Well, he was also responsible for the official All-Star Cafe, a chain of theme restaurants celebrating the worldwide of sports. This man caused incalculable damage to the mozzarella stick community. After the initial success of Planet Hollywood, Earl saw an opportunity to capitalize on the most American of all pastimes. And like the movie stars of Planet Hollywood, he enlisted celebrity athletes like Andre Agassi, Wayne Gretzky, Ken Griffey Jr., Shaquille O'Neal, Joe Montana, and Monica Seles to invest in the business. The first official All-Star Cafe, which served traditional sports food, opened in New York City in 1995. The walls were adorned with such iconic pieces of sports memorabilia as Agassi's ponytail and the first backboard O'Neal ever smashed. And the booths resembled oversized baseball gloves. The ground floor of the New York City location was a 5,000 square foot gift shop because you're not really a success unless you're selling t-shirts. In 1999, the cafe's parent company filed for bankruptcy and locations began closing. The last location, at Disney's Wide World of Sports, closed its doors in September of 2007. And that was game over for the official All-Star Cafe. Rainforest Cafe is a place that gives diners a unique experience of dining in a tropical rainforest. You know, if tropical rainforests were Chuck E. Cheese's for adults in the middle of a shopping mall. The first Rainforest Cafe opened in Minnesota's Mall of America in February 1994. Decked out with foliage, animal figures, mist, and waterfalls, the restaurant features a menu of mostly Americanized food, despite the fact that the U.S. has no rainforests. Owner Steven Schuessler's concept for Rainforest Cafe actually first took shape as a result of his home makeover.
And I wanted to have cascading waterfalls, soothing mists. They said that it was absolutely impossible. So I decided to take it a little bit further. I transformed my St. Louis Park, Minnesota home into the Rainforest Cafe.
Listen, the guy was really into rainforests. According to his autobiography, his home contained 40 tropical birds, 250-pound tortoises, a baboon, an iguana, and a bevy of tropical fish housed in 10 300-gallon fish tanks. And just like Schuessler's house, the cafe contained live animals too. On a regular schedule throughout operating hours, mock thunderstorms broke out inside, the lights would dim, lightning would flash, thunder would roll, and the sound of falling rain was pumped through the sound system. People must have thought it was cool because within days, the wait for a table stretched as long as 3 hours. That's a long time to wait for airport-quality food served against the backdrop of animatronic gorillas. As of 2023, Rainforest Cafe still has 23 locations open around the globe. Merchandise is for sale at every store location, including stuffed animals, toys, dinnerware, and exotic finds, just like in the real rainforest. If you've ever wanted to eat waffle fries in the presence of supermodels, Fashion Cafe was the oasis you were searching for.
It's finally happening. Hollywood rarely gives us glamour, so why not? You know, we've got Planet Hollywood. Why not one for the girls?
The idea behind Fashion Cafe was similar to Planet Hollywood and the official All-Star Cafe, except instead of movie stars or athletes, supermodels promoted the restaurant. However, unlike those other enterprises, the models were not part owners, but paid spokespeople who would simply receive a portion of the eatery's future profits. But just like Planet Hollywood, the people promoting the joint wouldn't eat a single thing on the menu. The Fashion Cafe was actually the brainchild of Italian entrepreneurial brothers Francesco and Tommaso Butti. Tommaso came to New York City from Italy in 1989 and started making connections within the city's real estate and celebrity circles. Recognizing the sudden popularity of runway models, he joined forces with his brother to open the first location in Rockefeller Center in the spring of 1995. The gala opening of Fashion Cafe was set up like a red carpet, except instead of a blockbuster movie, it was a place that served pizza and hamburgers. Among the attendees were spokesmodels Christy Turlington, Naomi Campbell, Elle Macpherson, and Claudia Schiffer, as well as Gianna and Donatella Versace, David Copperfield, and Stephen Dorff. Wait, was he invited or did he just kind of show up? The restaurant was decorated with trendy outfits once worn by the most popular models of the day. And of course, Fashion Cafe sold plenty of branded merchandise. Despite some initial success, every Fashion Cafe location closed, and in 2000, the Booty brothers faced 51 federal counts each of conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering in their handling of Fashion Cafe's finances. But in 2021, Tommaso Booty was pardoned by President Donald Trump. Inspired by a company founded by the titular character in the movie Forrest Gump, the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, which opened its first location in 1996 in Monterey, California, is a seafood restaurant featuring mostly Southern and Cajun dishes. Most of the dishes are named after characters from the popular 1994 film. People must love the Run Chicken Run salad because the chain sells roughly 1 million pounds of shrimp a year. What, no Lieutenant Dan cakes? That's just leaving money on the table. As of 2023, there are 34 locations in operation. Each is decorated with a nautical theme and memorabilia from the movie. Interestingly, actor Chris Pratt was discovered while waiting tables at a Bubba Gump Shrimp Company in Maui, Hawaii.
Gumper of the year right here. Thank you.
Maybe they should have called that place Planet Hollywood. When you think of the 1990s, you might think of things like the Star Wars prequels, The X-Files, and grunge rock. But right there alongside the movies, shows, and records of the decade are welcome memories of the all-weird, eye-catching, and totally 90s things we used to eat. So, today we're going to take a look at some tasty tidbits about staple foods of the 1990s. Someone cue up Jerry Springer because this 90s lunch is served. Sunny Delight, or Sunny D if you're cool and somehow also still living in the year 1996, was invented in Florida in 1963. Only Florida would invent an orange juice substitute in a state that depends on oranges to survive. But it didn't really take off until the 1990s, where popular commercials highlighted Sunny D's superiority to inferior drinks like Purple Stuff.
OJ, Purple Stuff, Sunny Delight.
This was especially true in the United Kingdom, where the drink became the 12th best-selling grocery product pretty much overnight. Sunny Delight was originally promoted as a healthy fruit drink that was like orange juice, if you mixed it with a few other drinks and watered it down with room-temperature ice cubes. But while it may have looked like orange juice, consumers would later discover it was closer to a soft drink. As more and more kids imbibed the bright orange beverage, however, a slightly more unnerving problem arose. In 1999, a toddler in Wales who drank Sunny D in large quantities began to turn yellow-orange. The skin color alteration was due to high levels of beta-carotene, the additive that gives Sunny Delight its characteristic hue. A spokesperson for the company argued that the child just drank way too much of the stuff, and that the condition was harmless and would soon return to normal. But people were understandably a little freaked out anyway. You can't just give a baby the complexion of a Simpsons character and not upset anyone. Anyone who lived in the same space as a microwave probably ate their weight in SpaghettiOs in the 90s. But despite their overwhelming popularity in the decade of Friends and ER, the Campbell's Soup Company actually introduced SpaghettiOs in the market way back in 1965. Invented by Donald Gork, SpaghettiOs were created to be less messy than traditional spaghetti, which they kind of are, as long as you eat them with a spoon and not, like, your hands. In fact, early marketing material touted the canned pasta as the neat round spaghetti you can eat with a spoon. Interestingly, the famous catchphrase jingle, "Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs," was also part of the initial marketing. The relentless earworm was loosely based on the "Oh-oh, I'm falling in love again" by Jimmy Rogers, who also sang the jingle. Bologna, which is not spelled anything close to how it's pronounced because the world is a cruel place, was a lunchtime staple for every kid who ever ate lunch out of a paper bag with their name written on it. But the mystery meat actually traces its origins back to Italy, where it is intricately linked to the traditional Italian sausage called mortadella. Mortadella originated in Bologna, Italy, and its ingredients aren't a mystery. It's made of pork. Like many other types of cured meats, it was popular by the Middle Ages, and during the 17th century, counterfeit versions appeared. As a result, making mortadella was officially tasked to a guild associated with the meat, and they were super serious about it. Anyone else that tried to make mortadella could reportedly be issued a fine or even stretched on the rack. presumably right next to a nice strip of mortadella. Bologna is similar to mortadella, but it's made of chicken, pork, beef, or other animal products. According to some, Italian immigrants brought bologna to the US, while others claim it has German influences. But that may be due to the popularization of the lunch meat by Oscar Mayer, who had that catchy jingle about their bologna having a first and second name.
My bologna has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R.
Oscar Mayer, who was a real guy, arrived in the US with his German family when he was a teenager. Alongside his brother, he sold bologna at a meat shop in Chicago during the early 20th century. Because bologna was more affordable than other cured meat, it was especially popular during the Great Depression. Thanks to the invention of sliced bread in 1928, a bologna sandwich became a convenient and cheap way to eat. So, it was literally the greatest sliced meat since the invention of sliced bread. People in the 1990s loved Hamburger Helper. It provided an easy way for latchkey kids and brutally hungover adults to make a complete meal using only an inexpensive box of noodles and seasoning, and a pound of fresh to gently spoiled meat. But it actually came from an effort to combat rising meat prices and a general lack of supplies during the 1970s. Companies like Betty Crocker looked to make a buck helping people stretch their meat supply. Figuratively, but maybe also literally? Rationing was a weird time. This new aim towards thriftiness led to several new products. Of course, when it comes to making meat last longer, the options are pretty limited. You can either freeze it or, bury it in a time capsule, maybe. The only other thing you can do is make meat-centric dishes that use as little meat as possible. Not enough to fill any bellies, but just enough to make everyone vaguely sad. One of the methods they came up with was to mix the meat with noodles and other carbohydrates, which were more affordable. And it was in that spirit that Hamburger Helper was born. As the name suggests, Hamburger Helper was a way to, well, help hamburgers. A hamburger assistance program, if you will. Except the help in this instance was to help consumers feed their entire household using a relatively small amount of meat, but it also offered additional perks. It was easy to prepare and only required one pan, making cleanup a breeze. And with the initial 5 Hamburger Helpers being beef noodle, potato stroganoff, hash, rice oriental, and chili tomato, it offered enough variety to keep meals interesting. Today there are more than 40 varieties. And how much more help can you really ask for? If you never ate molten chocolate cake in the 1990s, that's because you didn't visit enough themed restaurants. A dessert menu staple of chain restaurants with at least one airport location, the chocolate cake with a saucy inside was first created by chef Jean-Georges von Grichten in 1987. And even then, it was only created by dumb luck. There were predecessors to the molten lava cake that resembled von Richten's, specifically one created by chef Michel Bras of France as early as 1981, but they weren't exactly the same. Von Grichten's cake was the result of accidental underbaking, while Bras developed more of a type of cookie dough with chocolate in the center. Wait, cookie dough? Where can we get that cake? Other potential molten chocolate cake ancestors include the Tunnel of Fudge cake made by the second-place finisher in a Pillsbury bake-off in 1966, and a more recent creation by chocolatier Jacques Torres in France. In any case, hopefully mankind will continue to innovate and excel in the area of cakes that bleed chocolate like that elevator in The Shining every time you take a bite. Fish sticks. The great parental compromise for kids who won't eat seafood. These breaded and fried strips of Poseidon's Bounty were a regular fixture for many families in the 90s who spent time in the frozen food aisle. But they're quite a bit older than that and were created to help offload a bunch of ocean scraps. Historian Paul Josephson, who is apparently completely unconcerned with protecting anyone's appetite, calls the development of fish sticks the result of a need to process and sell tons of fish that were harvested from the ocean, filleted, and frozen in huge solid blocks. His article on the topic, which has the fantastic title, "The Ocean's Hot Dog, The Development of the Fish Stick," highlights how the breaded slabs of pressed fish met the needs of fish suppliers as well as a growing consumer culture during the 1950s. But regardless of what they're made of, and it's mostly Alaska pollock for the record, fish sticks bring to mind cafeteria lunchrooms and diners alike for many individuals who grew up during the 1990s. In one part of the US, however, fish sticks and professional hockey found a surprising and embarrassing connection during the same decade. The New York Islanders hockey team introduced a new mascot in the mid-90s that bore a striking resemblance to the Gorton's fisherman, the mascot of Gorton's Seafood, who, among other things, produces a whole bunch of fish sticks. So when they saw the new mascot, fans of opposing teams would start chanting, "We want fish sticks." Islanders fans also hated the mascot and created banners that said fish sticks are for dinner, not our logo. The mascot wasn't actually inspired by Gordon's. It was a tribute to the Billy Joel song The Downeaster Alexa, which the team felt personified the Long Island coastal experience. But apparently just made everyone think about fish sticks and not the Piano Man. Despite the negative reactions, the Islanders kept the mascot for more than 2 years before rebranding to their original logo in 1997. Salisbury steak is typically associated with 1990s cafeteria lunches and 1950s TV dinners, and no other period in between. It is a temporal anomaly of budget meal preparation. One taste of its signature mushroom and onion sauce will instantly transport you back to middle school during the Clinton administration. But Salisbury steak originated as a way of curing digestive issues during the 19th century, an exciting time in which gravy-soaked meat could still be considered medicine. Dr. James Salisbury was an American physician who was after a cure for chronic diarrhea. The cure wasn't for himself, though. It was for the troops fighting the Civil War, which gives the Battle of Bull Run an entirely new meaning. As part of his efforts, Salisbury developed a diet of broiled meat and clear liquids, but devoid of fruits, vegetables, and acidic additives. He found the diet reduced bloating and diarrhea in test subjects, and again later when he distributed it amongst members of the military. Salisbury didn't serve his ground beef plain, but rather covered in butter, salt, pepper, and gravy. After all, the man was a doctor. He even published a book on his diet and attracted some fairly dedicated followers, sort of like a 19th century Dr. Atkins. The dish was a staple for the military well into the 20th century, but according to reports, in the cookbook of the United States Navy of 1904, it was listed as hamburger steak. This name was later considered too German-sounding, so it was renamed after the diarrhea chef PhD himself, James Salisbury. Pizza Hut changed the world forever in 1995 with the introduction of the stuffed crust pizza. The Hut was already a 90s staple at that point thanks to tie-ins with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Uncanny X-Men, but jamming their crusts full of delicious melted cheese made it a destination for adults as well. Unless you believe Angelo Anthony Mongello, who claims to have patented the style in 1987. The New Jersey pizza maker actually sued Pizza Hut over the incredibly valuable idea, but because his patent was for stuffing shells rather than for the style of crust itself, the suit was dismissed. When stuffed crust pizzas hit the market, the concept really took off. Around the world, people even started stuffing crusts with different fillings that reflected local palates. In Australia, Vegemite, made from yeast extract, vegetable flavoring, and spices, was stuffed into pizza crusts, while Hong Kong enjoyed crusts full of fish eggs. Sure, I guess you could do that to a pizza. No, God! And in Japan, stuffed crust pizzas with pockets of shrimp, sausage, camembert cheese, and mozzarella cheese was introduced in 2015. Like we said, stuffed crust pizza changed the world. Kid cuisine frozen dinners were TV dinners created specifically for kids in the 1990s. So much so that their mascots were a skateboarding penguin and a polar bear wearing sunglasses. They featured kid-friendly meals like pizza, chicken nuggets, hamburgers, and macaroni and cheese, alongside side dishes and a dessert. And while the nutritional value, or lack thereof, immediately raised eyebrows, the brand developed a reputation for being a fast way for adults to feed their kids. So it thrived. Hey, it's cheaper than takeout, and that penguin looks like he's having a good time. Kid cuisine was particularly shrewd with its marketing. It didn't just appeal to parents' wallets. It aimed to lure kids in as well by participating in cross-promotions with popular kids' movies, like Oliver and Company, The Jungle Book, and The Swan Princess. Their commercials were also heavily geared towards children, as the company embraced what is known as the pester factor. That's essentially the likelihood that a kid will annoy their parents to death if the kids don't buy them whatever cool thing they saw in a commercial. Kid cuisine is still around and still includes foods like chicken nuggets, corn dogs, macaroni, french fries, and brownies with sprinkles, in the company's continued effort to make mealtime fun. It's unclear whether they still have that pester factor, but that penguin probably has a TikTok. Growing up in the 1990s meant surfing the internet on those AOL discs, watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Saved by the Bell, and playing GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64. And when it came to snacking, it meant having some of the greatest choices ever known to human children, if, that is, you could convince your parents to buy them. So today, we're unwrapping some 90s snack foods we want back. Okay, somebody throw on some Oasis. Released in 1990, Nestle's Push-Up Pops were basically just sherbet in a cardboard tube that came equipped with something akin to a built-in plunger, which was used to push the sherbet up. And they were yabba-dabba delicious, by which we mean they were bedazzled with Flintstones characters. Flintstones Push-Ups seemed to disappear from the shelves at the end of the decade, but in reality, Nestle had simply ended its branding deal with the cartoon's producers. Push-Ups are actually still out there in your grocer's freezer, just without Fred's smiling face on them. First released in 1988, Hubba Bubba Bubble Tape, a variation on the Hubba Bubba gum brand, exploded in the 1990s. Not literally. It just got really popular. Apparently, kids were really into measuring things. But whatever the reason, the popularity of Bubble Tape was probably more related to its famous marketing campaign, which told kids,
"It's 6 feet of bubble gum for you, not them."
Them, in this case, is meant to refer to adults. So the slogan was basically saying, this gum is gonna piss off your parents. It worked like the Pied Piper's flute, and the manufacturer found themselves making 1 million packages of the stuff a week at the height of its popularity. Although the idea of so-called fruit leather actually goes back to the turn of the 20th century, General Mills didn't introduce the world to fruit roll-ups until 1983. Once they did though, the snack, which was basically just fruit-flavored corn syrup dried in a flat circular shape on a piece of cellophane, could quickly be found in almost every supermarket in America. For a brief time between 1994 and 1996, General Mills partnered up with Nickelodeon to make fruit roll-ups that were branded with animated characters from shows like Doug, Rocko's Modern Life, and Real Monsters. There was even a limited edition slimy, grimy green flavor celebrating the network's infamous green slime. The end result looked like chowing down on a square of Shrek's pelt. Who wouldn't want to eat that? Manufactured by the Topps Company, who have primarily made baseball cards packaged with inedible gum for most of human history, Push Pops were a staple snack of 90s kids. Housed in a plastic tube that had a plunger-like device allowing consumers to push the treat up as they ate it, Push Pops were fairly similar to Nestle's Push-Ups, although Topps apparently couldn't snag an endorsement from Fred Flintstone. But if Push Pops were your jam, we're happy to report you can still get them in many of their classic flavors. The hyperactive brainchild of General Mills, Squeeze-Its were a juice-like drink that came in a plastic bottle, and in order to drink it, you had to, well, squeeze it. Although they were actually introduced in the 1980s, Squeeze-Its rose to popularity in the 90s, thanks to a weird series of commercials in which kids chased down terrified, anthropomorphized Squeeze-It bottles to drink their delicious innards. The commercial ends with the encouraging slogan, "Squeeze the fun out of it," which presumably hit the ears of every Squeeze-It bottle like a terrifying prophecy. Squeeze-Its came in flavors like Chucklin' Cherry, Rockin' Red Puncher, and Smarty Arty Orange. But the big squeeze came to an end when they were discontinued in 1991. Brought to you by the same people who brought you fruit roll-ups, Shark Bites first swam onto supermarket shelves in 1988. Shark Bites were famous for their so-called special pieces. Some packages included rare alternate shapes like great whites, shark's teeth, or tiger sharks. Because it's never too early to start teaching kids about gambling. The whole thing worked so well, the company released a companion snack called Berry Bears, aimed at girls who, for some reason, they assumed didn't like sharks. Shark Bites are still out there today, but ye be warned, their flavors are vastly different. Hubba Bubba Ouch bubblegum was sold in tin containers that were made to resemble Band-Aid boxes, for that weird kid in class who liked to eat Band-Aids. Also, each individual stick of gum was wrapped in paper, like a Band-Aid, to complete the illusion. And like actual Band-Aids, the gum was sugar-free, but unlike actual Band-Aids, it came in flavors like grape, watermelon, sugar, and bubble. If this was one of your favorites, however, we're sorry to report the bizarre gum was discontinued in the late 2000s. Lunchables were brought to you by Oscar Mayer, the first and last name in bologna, and first hit supermarket shelves in 1988, going nationwide in 1989. Conceived as a way to sell more bologna and marketed as a way to help moms save time making lunch, Lunchables were a massive hit. They sold over 1.5 billion units in their first decade and proliferated into a variety of flavors, including the now legendary pizza. Introduced in '96, pizza Lunchables were little snack packs that came with a small piece of crust, some sugary tomato sauce, 3 slices of pepperoni, some mozzarella cheese, and a cool red wand to spread the sauce. The wand is long gone, but otherwise, pizza Lunchables are still available. Though they were created in Taiwan as early as 1975, Warheads weren't imported to the United States until 1993. It makes sense that the candy king of schoolyard legend would have a vague backstory like Rambo. Flavored with citric and malic acid, they have a pronounced sour taste. The flavor's intensity fades after 5 to 10 seconds, but most people had already spat them out by then, despite, or more likely because of, a warning on the package that read, "Eating multiple pieces within a short time period may cause a temporary irritation to sensitive tongues and mouths." 90s kids would often hold contests to see who could eat the most Warheads at once. If you were one of those kids, we recommend getting back in fighting shape, because Warheads are still around today. Debuting on supermarket shelves in 1990, Kid Cuisine was a line of frozen dinners made exclusively for kids, which you could instantly tell because there was a cool-ass penguin wearing sunglasses right on the front of every package. The idea was basically to combine frozen foods and McDonald's Happy Meals for a Voltron of nutrition aimed squarely at latchkey kids. The TV dinner-like meals usually came with portions of kid-friendly meals like chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, and as the brand became more popular, new varieties like Pizza Painter Cheese Pizza and Rock and Roll Taco Roll-Ups were released. However, today you can only get 3 kinds: popcorn chicken, mini corn dogs, and all-star nuggets. They all come with a brownie, corn, and fries, or mac and cheese, if you're looking to recreate a weekday afternoon in the 90s. Kids like to play with their food. It's one of the immutable laws of the universe put forth by Isaac Newton. General Mills sought to capitalize on that universal truth by releasing Fruit String Thing, which comes from the same general Fruit Goop family of snack foods that include fruit roll-ups and shark bites. This time, the mixture was poured onto a paper backing in ropey tangles and swirls that kids could peel off the card as a single long strand or in bits and pieces. In fact, commercials for String Thing emphasized the creativity inherent in choosing how to eat one. While the standard form resembled string, the product also came in designs like rocket ships and bicycles, for kids with less imagination. But to the disappointment of kids everywhere, the product was discontinued sometime in the mid-2000s. Nestle's Butterfinger is a chocolate bar with a weird, flaky orange, peanut butter flavored filling that, believe it or not, has been around since 1922. When a product is a 70-year bestseller, you don't mess with the recipe, but you do try a spin-off. So in 1992, Nestle rolled out Butterfinger BBs. Introduced to the world through a high-profile advertising blitz starring The Simpsons, Butterfinger BBs were marble-sized nuggets of chocolate and peanut butter, presumably created to answer the question, what if Butterfingers were more of a choking hazard? The candy had a good run, but was discontinued in 2006, at which point we assume Bart finally had that cow. Nobody likes a flat Dorito. That's apparently what the brand was thinking when Doritos 3D debuted in 1998. Likely created to compete with snacks like Bugles, this version of the popular tortilla chip was basically just a puffed-up Dorito, like it had an allergic reaction to nacho cheese. It came in 3 flavors, including Zesty Ranch, Jalapeno Cheddar, and the old Doritos mainstay, Nacho Cheese. The line was discontinued pretty much everywhere but Mexico in 2004, but if you're one of the people who just can't stand 2D Doritos, take heart. In 2021, the company brought the 3D version back in 2 flavors, chili cheese nacho and spicy ranch. Nestle's Bug Pops, popsicles with little gummy bugs in them, were created as a tie-in to the animated cartoon Timon and Pumbaa, which starred the characters from Disney's 1994 animated classic, The Lion King, who were known to eat bugs. Despite looking for all the world like popsicles that had fallen under the refrigerator, the Bug Pops took off in 1995. They were available in cherry and grape, and each box typically included some Timon and Pumbaa training cards. Like the cartoon they were affiliated with, however, the product was relatively short-lived, disappearing from the shelves in 1997. Dropping in the mid-1990s, Sprinkle Spangle cereal from General Mills was star-shaped cereal covered in colorful sprinkles. Commercials for the product featured a purple genie character called Sprinkle Genie, who was voiced by Mel Brooks' mainstay Dom DeLuise. The character would show up to grant the wishes of kids who wanted sprinkles on their cereal with the catchphrase, "You wish it, I dish it," while the commercial itself bragged that the makers had spangled every angle with sprinkles. Despite all the rhymes, the brand was discontinued in 1998, never to be seen again. Sonic the Hedgehog made his debut on Sega gaming systems in 1991. By 1995, the character was famous enough to receive the highest award American culture has to offer, his own brand of canned spaghetti and meatballs. Sonic the Hedgehog pasta was manufactured by Franco-American, the maker of SpaghettiOs, who marketed the brand with a bizarre commercial that depicted a Robotnik-like kid plugging a can of pasta into his gaming system. Sonic himself would go on to fame and fortune in the movies, but his branded pasta hit the wall in 2000. So what do you think? Were you a 90s kid? And if so, were any of these treats among your favorites? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Weird History.